I found myself whispering to the stars the night my granddaughter, Lily, was born, promising to protect her with every breath. But never in my 72 years did I imagine that my deepest bond could stir such unrest within my own kin. My name is Auntie Maya, a name that has echoed with strength and wisdom in the streets of Atlanta, but even I was not prepared for the storm my love for Lily would unleash. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, I've witnessed the transformation of this city from the civil rights era to the bustling metropolis it is today. My life has been a testament to resilience, having been a nurse for over 3 decades. I've seen life come into this world and leave it, each time leaving a mark on my soul. But nothing touched me quite like the arrival of my granddaughter, Lily. Lily came into this world on a stormy night in October. Her birth was like a beacon of hope for our family, lighting up our lives in ways we never imagined. From the moment I held her, I knew there was something special about Lily. Maybe it was the way she grasped my finger with her tiny hand, or the way her eyes seemed to look right into my soul, understanding and wise beyond her years. As Lily grew, so did our bond. I taught her to read before she even started school, shared with her the stories of our ancestors, and instilled in her the values that had been passed down through generations. Lily was not just my granddaughter, she was a piece of my heart living outside my body. But as the years passed, whispers of favoritism began to circulate within the family. My children, Lily's aunts and uncles, started to voice their concerns, feeling that I was devoting too much time and attention to Lily, neglecting their own children. The atmosphere at family gatherings shifted, no longer the warm reunions of old, but rather tense affairs where unspoken grievances hung heavy in the air. One particular evening, during Lily's 10th birthday celebration, the tension reached its peak. The house was filled with laughter and the aroma of my famous peach cobbler, a recipe passed down from my grandmother. Yet beneath the surface of this joyous occasion, resentment simmered. "Mom, don't you think you're a bit too involved with Lily?" The other kids feel left out. My son, Marcus, finally voiced the concern that had been troubling him for months. His words were like a cold splash of reality. I realized then the impact my actions had on the family dynamics. I had been so caught up in my connection with Lily that I had inadvertently alienated my other grandchildren. That night, as the party dwindled and the last of the guests left, I found myself sitting on the porch, reflecting on Marcus's words. The cool breeze carried with it a sense of change, a need to mend the rifts that had formed within my family. The following day, I decided to take action. I called a family meeting, inviting all my children and grandchildren. It was time to address the elephant in the room and find a way to restore the harmony that had once been the cornerstone of our family. As we all gathered in the living room, the air was filled with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. I took a deep breath and began, "Family, it has come to my attention that I may have been showing favoritism towards Lily. This was never my intention, and I apologize if my actions have hurt any of you. Lily holds a special place in my heart, but that doesn't mean I love her more than any of you." The room was silent for a moment, and then, one by one, my children and grandchildren began to open up about their feelings. It was a deeply emotional conversation, one that brought to light many unspoken truths and grievances. But it was also a healing one. We agreed on solutions that would ensure no one felt left out, including regular one-on-one outings with each grandchild and more inclusive family activities. It wasn't an overnight fix, but it was a start. As the months went by, the change was palpable. The family gatherings were warm again, filled with genuine laughter and love. And as for Lily and me, our bond remained strong, but now it thrived within a larger circle of love and acceptance. On a crisp autumn evening, as I sat on the porch with Lily by my side, watching the sunset, I realized that love, in all its forms, has the power to heal and unite. My heart swelled with gratitude for my family, for the lessons learned, and for the love that binds us all together. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. After the funeral, life felt like walking through a dense fog trying to find my way without Jeremiah by my side. But before I continue, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel and share where you're watching from in the comments. We treasure knowing how far our stories reach. Jeremiah had been my compass, my confidant for over 43 years. Our home, once filled with laughter, music, and the pitter-patter of our children, now echoed with silence. I missed him deeply, but life had to go on. In his absence, I found solace in the garden we had nurtured together. It became my refuge, where I could talk to him and feel his presence in the blooms we had planted together. One crisp morning, as I was tending to the roses, a gentle knock on the door interrupted my solitude. I wasn't expecting anyone. Most of our friends had drifted away, and our children were busy with their own lives. Wiping my hands on my apron, I made my way to the door, curiosity mingling with a hint of reluctance. Standing at my doorstep was a young woman, her eyes a reflective pool of nerves and determination. "Mrs. Hampton?" she inquired, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes, that's me," I replied, studying her face for a hint of familiarity. "My name is Clara. I believe I might be your granddaughter." The world seemed to pause around me. Granddaughter? Jeremiah and I had always longed for grandchildren, but with our children estranged, the hope had faded like the setting sun. "Please, come in," I said, stepping aside to let her enter. The mixture of excitement and apprehension was palpable as we sat down in the living room, the same room where countless family memories lingered in the air. Clara shared her story with a vulnerability that tugged at my heartstrings. She was the daughter of our youngest son, Michael, who had left home at 18 and never looked back. Clara had spent years piecing together her father's past, leading her to our doorstep. As she spoke, I saw Jeremiah's determination in her eyes, his warmth in her smile. It was a bittersweet revelation, knowing part of him lived on, yet he never had the chance to meet her. We talked for hours, bridging the gap years of separation had created. Clara was a breath of fresh air, her presence bringing a semblance of joy back into the home. In the days that followed, Clara became a regular visitor. She helped me in the garden, where we planted new flowers in memory of Jeremiah. It was a healing process for both of us, a way to connect with him and each other. The garden flourished under our care, a symbol of new beginnings and hope. One evening, as we were enjoying tea by the fireplace, Clara asked about her father. It was a difficult topic, one I had avoided for years. Michael's departure had left a void in our lives, his reasons shrouded in mystery and hurt. I took a deep breath, ready to open old wounds in the hope of providing Clara with the answers she sought. I recounted the story of Michael's restless spirit, his yearning for a life beyond the confines of our small town. There had been arguments, tears, and ultimately a departure that fractured the family. Clara listened intently, her eyes reflecting the pain of the past. "But the most shocking thing was yet to come," I continued, feeling the weight of the moment. Michael had reached out a few years after leaving, his message lost among unread letters and unspoken grievances. It was a missed opportunity for reconciliation, one that haunted me. Clara and I decided to search for Michael, to bridge the gap that had widened over the years. It was a journey neither of us had anticipated, but one that we embarked on together, fueled by the hope of reuniting a family torn apart by time and misunderstandings. Our quest led us through the memories of the past, each step uncovering layers of love, loss, and longing. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring bond of family, and the unexpected paths life takes us on. As we near the end of this part of our story, I'm reminded of the strength found in forgiveness, the power of love to heal. Did you like the story? Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. So, where were we? Yes. The morning after that life-changing revelation at my mother's funeral, I woke with a heavy heart. The sun spilled through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the room, but even that couldn't lift the weight of my discovery. My mother, the pillar of strength and virtue in my eyes, had carried a secret that now threatened to redefine everything I knew about our family. As I sat at the kitchen table, sipping on coffee that tasted more like ash than Arabica, my mind wrestled with what to do next. The letter, my mother's confession, lay on the table in front of me, its edges slightly curled from where I'd held it in my shaking hands the night before. She wrote of love, a forbidden love, with a man who was not my father, and from that love a child was born, a child she gave away to protect us from scandal. The gravity of her words was suffocating. How could I, her confidant and caretaker in her final years, not have known? How many times had I looked into her eyes and not seen the pain she carried? The questions were endless, each one a fresh cut into the fabric of our family history. But before I could drown in the sea of my thoughts, there was a knock at the door. I hesitated, not ready to face anyone or share this burden. Yet the knock persisted, more insistent this time. With a heavy sigh, I rose and made my way to the door, opening it to find a face I didn't recognize. A woman, probably in her late 50s, with kind eyes that held a nervous anticipation. "Can I help you?" I asked, unsure of what else to say. "Are you James?" she inquired, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, that's me. And you are?" "My name is Clara," she replied, taking a deep breath as if bracing herself for what was to come next. I think I might be your sister." The world seemed to pause around me, the words hanging in the air like a melody that's both beautiful and haunting. My sister? It couldn't be. Yet, as I looked into her eyes that mirrored my own in a way that was undeniable, I felt a connection that went beyond words. Clara stepped inside, and we sat at the kitchen table, the very place where I had spent countless mornings talking to my mother about everything and nothing. Now it became the setting for a conversation that would change the course of our lives. She told me of her journey, of the letter she received from my mother just weeks before her passing, a letter that revealed the truth of her birth and the painful decision to give her up. Clara had lived a good life, raised by loving adoptive parents, but the need to know her roots, to understand where she came from, had led her to my doorstep. As I listened, a mix of emotions washed over me. Anger for the secret kept from me, sadness for the years lost that could have been shared. But above all, a growing sense of wonder at the resilience of the human heart, its capacity to love, to forgive, and to find connection in the most unexpected places. We spent the afternoon poring over old photo albums, Clara pointing out the resemblance she shared with our mother, while I shared stories of our childhood, filling in the blanks of a life she never got to live with us. It was bittersweet, this melding of past and present, but it was also a beginning, a chance to build something new from the ashes of hidden truths. As the day turned to evening and Clara prepared to leave, a sense of peace settled over me. Our journey was just beginning, and there were still many questions to be answered, bridges to be built. But for the first time since reading my mother's letter, I felt hopeful about the future. "Thank you, James," Clara said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears as she hugged me goodbye. "For listening, for accepting me. I know this is a lot to take in, but I'm here, whenever you're ready." "I'm glad you found me," I replied, returning her embrace. "We have a lot of catching up to do." And as I watched her drive away, I realized that sometimes the most profound discoveries in life come from the secrets we think we can't face. They lead us to new connections, new beginnings, and ultimately, to a deeper understanding of love and what it means to be family. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As the sun began to set over Atlanta, casting a golden hue across the skyline, I found myself sitting on the porch of my old yet enduring home, reflecting on the events that had unfolded in the past weeks. The air was filled with the sweet scent of jasmine, a gentle reminder of the changing seasons and the cycles of life. It was on this very porch that I had spent countless hours with my family, sharing stories, laughter, and sometimes tears. But today, it was the silence that kept me company, a silence filled with anticipation and memories waiting to be revisited. Now, where did I leave off? I mumbled to myself, as if expecting an answer from the whispering wind. Ah, yes, the letter. The letter that had arrived unexpectedly, tucked away in an old book, had opened a door to the past that I thought was long closed. It was from my sister Ella, who I hadn't seen in over 30 years. Life had a funny way of coming full circle, I thought, as I carefully unfolded the weathered paper once again. Ella's handwriting was just as I remembered, elegant yet hurried, as if each word was trying to keep up with the thoughts in her mind. She wrote about her life, her children, and the twists and turns that had led her to where she was now. But it was the last paragraph that had left me speechless, a confession that she had kept a secret from the world, a secret that involved me. Ella revealed that before our estrangement, she had been the keeper of a family heirloom, a small locket that had been passed down through generations. Unknown to me, she had hidden the locket away, fearing that the family feud would lead to its loss. But now in her later years, she felt the weight of this secret and wished for the locket to be returned to its rightful place, with me. The locket was not just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of our family's legacy, a connection to our ancestors who had fought and lived through times of adversity. It represented love, resilience, and the strength of family bonds, something that had become fragmented over the years. Ella's letter was not just a confession. It was a plea for reconciliation, a chance to mend the broken threads of our family tapestry. As I sat there, the locket in my hand, I couldn't help but wonder about the timing of it all. Why now? After all these years, what had prompted Ella to reach out and seek forgiveness? It was a question that lingered in my mind, a puzzle waiting to be solved. But one thing was clear. This was an opportunity, a chance to bridge the gap that had kept us apart for too long. The decision to reconnect with Ella was not an easy one. The years had built walls not just between us, but within myself. Pride, hurt, and misunderstanding had woven a complex web that seemed almost impossible to untangle. Yet, as I held the locket, feeling its warmth against my skin, I knew it was time to let go of the past and embrace the possibility of a new beginning. Sometimes the hardest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations, I often told my nieces and nephews. It was a lesson I had learned through my own life experiences, the ups and downs that had shaped me into the woman I am today. And now, it was a lesson that I needed to remind myself of as I took the first steps towards reconciliation. The journey ahead would not be easy. It would require patience, understanding, and a willingness to listen and forgive. But as I looked out into the fading light, watching the sky turn from gold to shades of pink and purple, I felt a sense of peace. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful about the future, about rekindling a relationship that had once meant the world to me. As the night descended and the stars began to twinkle in the vast canvas above, I made a promise to myself. I would reach out to Ella, extend an olive branch, and open my heart to the possibility of healing and forgiveness. It was a journey that I was ready to embark on, a journey towards love and reconciliation. And with that thought, I stood up, the locket still in my hand, and walked back into the house, ready to take the first step towards a new chapter in our lives. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over Atlanta, Georgia, I found myself sitting on the porch of my old yet comforting home, a glass of sweet tea in hand. It was one of those evenings when memories flood in faster than you can sip your drink, each one a different shade of joy and sorrow. Remembering the day I first met Jeremiah brought both a smile and a tear. We were young, both of us bold and full of dreams. He had that look in his eye, the one that said he was going places, and somehow he decided he was going there with me. Our love was a whirlwind, passionate and all-consuming. We married young, built a life together, raised children, and watched them grow and leave to build their own. Through it all, Jeremiah was my rock, my foundation. But life, as it does, tested us. Jeremiah's health began to falter as we grew older, and I watched the man who was once larger than life itself become a shadow of his former self. It was during those long nights, sitting by his bedside, that I realized the depth of our vows. In sickness and in health, we had promised, and I intended to keep that promise until the very end. And then, just like that, he was gone. The funeral was a blur, a day marked by absences rather than presences. Our children, caught up in their own lives, sent flowers and condolences, but their physical absence was felt deeply. As I stood there next to his casket, I felt a loneliness that was overwhelming. Jeremiah had been my partner for more than 50 years, and without him, the world seemed a vastly emptier place. But life has a way of moving on, even when we feel stuck in place. In the weeks that followed, I found myself sorting through Jeremiah's belongings, each item a portal to a memory we shared. It was during one of these afternoons that I stumbled upon something unexpected. Tucked away in the back of his closet, hidden beneath a pile of old sweaters, was a small leather-bound journal. Curiosity piqued, I sat down in the quiet of our bedroom and began to turn the pages. The journal, it turned out, was a collection of letters Jeremiah had written to me over the years, letters he had never sent. Each one was dated, a chronicle of our life together, filled with his thoughts, his dreams, and most strikingly, his fears. Reading through them, I discovered a side of Jeremiah I never knew existed. He wrote about the challenges of fatherhood, the pressure of providing for a family, and his deep, abiding love for me. He expressed his fears of not being enough, of leaving us too soon. With each letter, I felt as if I was getting to know him all over again, understanding the silent battles he fought within himself. But it was the final letter, dated just a few weeks before his passing, that brought me to tears. In it, Jeremiah spoke of his gratitude for our life together, for the family we built, and for every moment we shared. He wrote of his hope that I would find happiness after he was gone, that I would not be consumed by grief, but instead remember the love we shared. Sitting there, holding that letter, I felt a shift within myself. I realized that my journey with Jeremiah was not over. It had simply changed. He had given me a gift, a piece of himself that I could hold on to forever. And so as I sit here on this porch, watching the sky turn from gold pink to a deep velvety blue, I feel a sense of peace. Yes, the pain of loss is still there, but so is the love, the memories, and now these letters. They are a reminder that love, true love, never really dies. It simply transforms, finding new ways to express itself, even in absence. My heart is full of gratitude for the years I spent with Jeremiah, for the family we raised, and for this unexpected gift he left me. And as I look towards the future, I do so with a renewed sense of hope and purpose. I know that life goes on, and with it so must I. But I also know that Jeremiah will always be with me, in every sunrise, every sunset, and every quiet moment in between. As I finish my tea and head inside, I make a silent promise to myself and to Jeremiah. I will live fully, love deeply, and embrace every moment life has to offer. After all, that's exactly what he would have wanted for me. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself trapped in a labyrinth of mysteries that seemed to deepen with every step I took. My quest to uncover the truth behind my mother's secret, which she had harbored for 40 years, had led me down a path I could never have imagined. The letter I discovered in the attic after her funeral was just the beginning. One chilly autumn evening, as the last leaves fell from the trees outside, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by piles of old photographs and letters. The air was thick with the scent of cinnamon from the pie I had absent-mindedly put in the oven, a desperate attempt to comfort myself in the midst of my turmoil. Each photograph, each letter seemed to whisper secrets from the past, secrets that my mother had taken great pains to keep. But why? The letter, written in my mother's elegant script, revealed a name I had never heard before: Elijah. According to the letter, Elijah was more than just a friend or distant relative. He was a pivotal part of her life, a part she had chosen to erase completely from our family's history. The more I read, the more I realize that Elijah's disappearance from our lives wasn't just a result of time or circumstance. It was intentional, a deliberate act on my mother's part. But what could possibly have led her to make such a decision? Determined to find answers, I reached out to relatives, friends of the family, and anyone who might have known my mother during the time Elijah was part of her life. Most were reluctant to speak, their hesitance speaking volumes about the gravity of the secret my mother had kept. It was Aunt Clara, my mother's sister, and the only one willing to shed some light on the matter, who finally agreed to meet with me. We met at a quaint little cafe downtown, a place that seemed untouched by time. Aunt Clara, with her gentle eyes and warm smile, seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders as she sipped her tea. "Your mother loved Elijah deeply," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But their love was a forbidden one, tangled in a web of lies, deceit, and a scandal that would have destroyed our family." As Aunt Clara recounted the story, I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Elijah was not just a friend, he was the love of my mother's life. Their relationship, however, was doomed from the start, fraught with challenges and societal pressures that I could scarcely comprehend. In an era when their love was not only taboo but dangerous, they were forced to meet in secret, their only solace in the stolen moments they shared. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. "Elijah disappeared because he had to," Aunt Clara said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Not because he wanted to. Your mother had to make a choice, and she chose to protect you and your siblings, even if it meant losing Elijah forever." The weight of the revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. My mother had sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of her children, living with a secret that tormented her until her dying day. And now, with this knowledge, I was left to grapple with the implications of her decision. How do you come to terms with a love so powerful, yet so painfully repressed? As I left the cafe, the world around me seemed different, as though I was seeing it through new eyes. The journey to uncover my mother's secret had led me to an understanding of love, sacrifice, and the complexities of the human heart that I had never known before, but it had also left me with more questions than answers. Who was Elijah, really? And what became of him after he disappeared from my mother's life? The quest for the truth was far from over. As I delved deeper into the mystery, I realized that each answer I found only led to more questions. Each layer I peeled back, revealing more about my mother's past and my own than I was prepared for. But one thing was clear: I couldn't stop now. The truth, no matter how painful, was the only path to understanding and ultimately to healing. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. I'm sorry, but I can't continue the story based on the provided instructions. I never imagined that the key to my mother's decades-old secret would be found in an old, dusty attic in Atlanta, Georgia. There it was, a small, leather-bound journal hidden beneath layers of forgotten Christmas decorations and baby clothes that had seen better days. My hands trembled as I opened it. The pages whispered secrets of a past life, my mother's life, that she had kept hidden from us all. But before we dive deeper, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far my stories reach. As I flipped through the pages, written in my mother's elegant hand, I discovered tales of a young woman filled with hopes and dreams, vastly different from the mother I knew. She wrote about her love for painting, how she dreamed of moving to Paris to study art. I never knew. In our home, the only art was the occasional crayon drawings I brought home from school. But it wasn't the revelations of her hidden passions that shook me. It was the confession about a man named Thomas. Thomas was the love of my life, she wrote, but our love was a forbidden one, shrouded in secrecy and ultimately heartbreak. My heart raced as I read on. The attic suddenly felt stifling, the air thick with the echo of my mother's long-buried heartache. Thomas, it turned out, was not my father. This man, a talented artist from New Orleans, had swept my mother off her feet in a whirlwind summer romance that she described with words that painted a vivid picture of their love. They had planned to elope, to start a new life together in Paris, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. The pages trembled in my hands as I read about the day Thomas disappeared. My mother had been waiting at the train station, her suitcase packed, her heart full of dreams, but Thomas never showed. Hours turned to days and days to weeks. There was no word, no sign of him. Broken-hearted, she returned home carrying a secret that would remain hidden for decades. I sat back, the journal resting in my lap, and looked around the dusty attic. I realized then that the attic wasn't just a place to store forgotten things. It was a vault of hidden stories, a testament to the lives lived and the secrets kept by those before us. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As I continued reading, my mother's words revealed that Thomas had left something behind. A painting, one that he had made for her, a symbol of their love. It was hidden in a place only she knew, a place she hoped one day I would find if ever I discovered her secret. My eyes scanned the attic, wondering where such a painting could be hidden, and at that exact moment, the doorbell rang, jolting me out of my reverie. Reluctantly, I closed the journal and made my way downstairs. Standing at the door was an elderly man, his eyes brimming with years of stories. "I'm looking for the Hampton family," he said, his voice trembling with anticipation. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly fitting together, but there were still missing pieces scattered about. Who was this man? Could it be? My heart raced as I invited him in, a myriad of questions running through my mind. As we sat down, the man pulled out a photograph from his coat pocket. It was a picture of my mother, young and radiant, standing next to him. "I am Thomas," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've come to tell you the story of your mother and me, the true story. If you're questioning whether this is real, you're not alone." My head was spinning, trying to make sense of this moment, this unbelievable twist in my mother's story. I listened intently as Thomas began to recount their love story, filling in the gaps my mother's journal had left. Their love, it seemed, was one for the ages, but it was also one that faced insurmountable obstacles. Listening to Thomas, I felt a connection to my mother I never knew was missing. The secrets, the pain, the love, it was all there. And as Thomas spoke, I realized that this wasn't just a story of lost love. It was a story of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of the human heart. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, I knew that this moment, this incredible revelation, would change my life forever. But the story doesn't end here. There's so much more to uncover, so many more secrets to reveal, and I promise to share every step of this journey with you. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, the moment everything in my life took a turn that not even I, with all my years and wisdom, could have anticipated. You see, after finding that letter in my father's attic, I stood there, frozen, the paper trembling in my hands. The words on it revealed a truth so profound, it threatened to unravel the fabric of our family. The letter was from a woman named Clarice. She claimed to be my father's first love, someone he had promised to marry before he met my mother. But that wasn't the bombshell. No, the real shock came with the revelation that Clarice had a son she claimed was also my father's. If what the letter said was true, that meant I had a half-brother out there somewhere, a thought that sent shivers down my spine. For days I wrestled with what to do. Do I confront my siblings with this? My father had been the glue that kept us together, especially after we lost our mother. I feared this news might just tear us apart. But secrets have a way of coming out, and the truth, no matter how painful, always has a way of presenting itself. I decided to talk to Auntie Maya. If anyone could offer me some sage advice, it was her. I found her in her usual spot, rocking gently on her front porch, a glass of sweet tea in hand. "Child, you look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders," she said before I could even speak. And so I poured out everything. About the letter, the woman named Clarice, and the brother I never knew I had. Auntie Maya listened quietly, nodding now and then, her eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, there was a long silence. A silence so heavy, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Finally, she spoke. "Honey, life is full of surprises. Some sweet, some not so much. But it's how we handle these surprises that define us. This brother of yours, finding him, understanding your father's past, it won't be easy. But it's a journey you might have to take. Not just for your father's sake, but for yours." Her words settled in me like a weight, grounding and frightening all at once. I realized then that this journey was one I had to undertake, to uncover the truth, no matter where it led or what it revealed about my father and about myself. But where to begin? Clarice's letter was decades old, and she hadn't left any contact information. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. That's when Auntie Maya suggested something I hadn't considered. "Why don't you start with your father's old friends? Someone must know something about this Clarice." It was as good a place to start as any. I spent the next few days tracking down my father's friends, those still with us. Each conversation was a delicate dance, me trying to bring up the past without revealing too much. And then finally a breakthrough. One of my father's oldest friends, Mr. Johnson, remembered Clarice. "Oh yes, your father was head over heels for her. But they had a falling out, something about choices and paths diverging. Last I heard, she moved out west with her family." Out west. It was a clue, albeit a slim one. But it was all I had. Packing a bag, I kissed Auntie Maya goodbye, promising to keep her updated. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the verge of something life-changing. Was I ready for what I might find? Only time would tell. The journey was long and filled with moments of doubt. What if Clarice didn't want to be found? What if my half-brother rejected me? But Auntie Maya's words echoed in my heart, giving me strength. It's the journeys we're scared to take that often lead to the most important discoveries. And so, with a mixture of fear and hope, I continued on, not knowing what I would find, but certain that the truth, whatever it may be, was worth pursuing. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Continuing on, the days following my discovery in the attic felt like walking through a thick fog. The letter I found, hidden beneath layers of forgotten photographs and dusty ledgers, held a secret that had the potential to unravel the very fabric of my family. Written in my father's meticulous hand, it was addressed to a woman I'd never heard of, confessing a love that predated my existence and hinting at a life parallel to the one we shared with him. As I sat on the worn attic floor, the paper trembling in my hands, I felt a mixture of betrayal and heartache. My father, the stoic pillar of our family, had harbored a love for another woman all these years. The revelation sent waves of questions crashing over me. Who was she? Did she know about us? And the most haunting question of all, did my mother know? The letter didn't provide answers, only more questions. It was dated just a few months before my mother's sudden illness, which took her away from us too soon. The timing of it all seemed too precise to be a mere coincidence. With a heavy heart, I decided it was time to confront the past my father chose to leave behind. The following day, I took a leave of absence from my job and set out on a journey to find the woman named in my father's letter. According to the address scrawled at the bottom, She lived in a small coastal town a few states away. The drive was long, and with each mile, I felt a mix of dread and determination building within me. Arriving in the quaint town, I found her house nestled among towering oak trees, with a view of the ocean beyond. Taking a deep breath, I knocked on the door, my heart pounding louder than my fist against the wood. A woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair opened the door. Her gaze was inquisitive, yet there was a warmth to it that eased some of the tension I carried. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice soft yet strong. "I believe you knew my father," I began, the words catching in my throat. His name was Daniel Harrison. The mention of my father's name caused a flicker of recognition to pass over her features. She stepped aside, inviting me in with a gesture that felt like the opening of a new chapter in my life. We sat in her sunlit kitchen, a pot of tea between us, as she shared the story of her and my father. They met in their youth, a love ignited in the simplicity of shared dreams and whispered promises. But life, with its relentless tide, pulled them in different directions. My father chose the path of duty and responsibility, marrying my mother and starting a family. The woman, whom I learned was named Eleanor, chose freedom, traveling the world, but keeping my father in a special place in her heart. Listening to Eleanor, I realized the complexity of the human heart. My father loved my mother, of that I had no doubt. But he also loved Eleanor, in a way that was different yet just as profound. The letter was his confession, a way to reckon with the past and find peace. As the afternoon light waned, I left Eleanor's house with a sense of closure. The journey back home felt lighter, as if I had left behind the weight of unanswered questions. I understood now that love, in its many forms, shapes us in ways we might never fully comprehend. Returning home, I shared the truth with my siblings. It wasn't easy, unveiling a side of our father we never knew, but it brought us closer together, united in the complexities of our shared history. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. Upon my return, I found a letter waiting for me, written in my mother's hand. It seemed she had known about my father's secret all along and chose love and forgiveness over bitterness. Her words, filled with wisdom and compassion, taught me that secrets, no matter how deep they're buried, have a way of coming to light, often leading us to a greater understanding of ourselves and the ones we love. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect. I never expected to find myself at the center of a family saga that seemed to unravel with every passing minute. After discovering the long-hidden truth about my mother's secret, our lives had taken a turn I could hardly comprehend. As I stood in the dimly lit living room of my childhood home, the very walls seemed to whisper the echoes of past conversations, secrets that were now coming to light. The secret, as it turned out, was a letter hidden in a forgotten corner of the attic, written in my mother's elegant script, a confession of a love affair from decades ago, one that had produced a child, my half-sibling, whose existence had been kept from us all these years. The revelation was staggering, not just for the secret itself, but for the ripple effects it had on our family. My siblings and I, now adults with families of our own, were left to grapple with this new reality. The woman we had known as our mother appeared in a new light, her decisions, both past and present, casting long shadows over our understanding of our family history. But before we go any further, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing how far our stories travel. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. Anger, confusion, sadness, each took their turn as we tried to come to terms with our mother's actions. It was during one of these long nights, as I sifted through old family albums and letters, that I found a photograph, a picture of my mother, young and radiant, holding a baby. On the back, in her handwriting, "With love, always." The discovery of the photograph prompted me to take action. I needed to understand, to get to the bottom of this story that had been hidden for so long. I reached out to a private investigator, someone who came highly recommended, to help track down this mysterious half-sibling. Weeks turned into months, the investigator following leads that seemed to stretch across the country. Then, one day, a breakthrough, a name and an address. My half-sibling Alex lived not 100 miles away. The decision to reach out to Alex was not made lightly. I wrestled with the implications, the potential for more hurt, more upheaval. But in the end, the need for connection, for understanding, won out. I wrote a letter explaining who I was and the discovery that had led me to him. It was the most difficult letter I'd ever written, each word weighed down by the enormity of the situation. And then, the waiting. Days filled with anxious pacing, endless scenarios running through my mind. What if Alex rejected us? What if this revelation caused him pain? The response, when it came, was not what I expected. An invitation to meet, to talk, to begin the process of understanding each other. It was a glimmer of hope in a sea of uncertainty, a chance to connect with a part of my family I never knew I had. The day of the meeting arrived, a moment that felt both terrifying and necessary. As I drove to the address given, my thoughts were a whirlwind. What would I say? How would I explain our mother's actions? When I finally met Alex, the conversation was awkward at first. Two strangers linked by a shared past. But as we talked, shared stories of our mother, the barriers began to fall away. Alex had known about us, had even followed our lives from a distance, respecting the boundary our mother had set. The connection was tentative, fragile, but it was there. We decided to keep in touch, to slowly build on this newfound relationship. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. Just as I thought our family's secrets had been fully uncovered, another letter arrived. This one, addressed to both Alex and me, was from our mother. It had been written in the last weeks of her life, a final confession, an explanation, an apology. Reading the letter, I felt as if I was seeing my mother for the first time. The weight of her secret, the pain of her choices, were laid bare. She had loved us all, but the fear of the truth coming out had kept her silent. The letter was a turning point, a chance for forgiveness, for understanding, for moving forward. Our family, once fractured, began the slow process of healing. If you're questioning whether this is real, whether families can come back from such revelations, I'm here to tell you they can. It's not easy, and it's not quick, but it is possible. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the porch where I sat, the final pieces of our family puzzle found their places. It had been a journey of revelations, heartache, and ultimately healing. I leaned back in my rocking chair, the one Jeremiah and I had picked out together all those years ago, and let out a sigh of relief. The weight of the secret I had carried for so long was finally lifted. You see, the letter I found in my father's attic after his funeral revealed a truth that had the power to either shatter our family or bring us closer than we ever imagined. It told of a child, my half-sibling, given up for adoption long before I was born. A child my father had never forgotten, but felt he had to hide to protect us and the memory of my mother. The journey to find this lost sibling was not easy. There were moments of doubt, times when I questioned my father's choices, and whether uncovering the past was worth the pain it caused. But as the truth came to light, it became clear that this was about more than just filling in the blanks of our family history. It was about understanding, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of love. With the help of a determined young woman, a private investigator with a knack for uncovering the hidden stories of forgotten lives, we found him. My brother living just 2 states over, with a family of his own. The reunion was something out of a storybook. It was awkward at first, the uncertainty of how to bridge decades of separation weighing heavy in the air. But then a laugh, a shared glance, and suddenly the years melted away. We spent that first meeting talking late into the night, sharing stories, photos, and tears. It was as if we were making up for lost time, building the foundation of a relationship that should have been ours from the start. And now, as I sit here, with the warmth of the setting sun on my face, I can't help but feel a sense of peace. This journey has taught me so much about the complexities of family, the power of truth, and the healing that comes with forgiveness. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth every moment. For those of you listening, wondering about your own family mysteries, your own hidden truths, I say this: the path to understanding may be difficult, but it is also filled with the potential for incredible joy and deep connection. Don't be afraid to take that first step. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.